Hello, BBN. Tyron Stokes and Christian Collins on their way to Kentucky? Is Pope making bold moves, and will he put the Wildcats at the top of this draft? Let's analyze the news. But first, subscribe to the channel and receive more news about the Cats. The college basketball scene turns its eyes to Lexington, where Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats seem to be orchestrating something big, and perhaps decisive, for the future of the program. Tyron Stokes and Christian Collins, two of the biggest names in the 2026 draft, are getting closer and closer to becoming Wildcats, and the behind-the-scenes activity indicates that Pope is conducting the process with the same coolness and conviction that marked his first months leading the team. In the case of Tyron Stokes, he is simply the unanimous number 1 pick in the class of 2026. When he narrowed his shortlist to Kentucky, Kansas, and Oregon, he made it clear that he is looking for a project that goes beyond immediate prestige. And in that respect, Kentucky has offered something more solid: structure, culture, and the feeling of being at the epicenter of a new cycle of success. Pope has been careful and at the same time confident in how he approaches the possibility of bringing Stokes in this cycle, something few coaches would dare to consider. There is growing speculation, supported by big names like Jack Pilgrim and Jacob Polachek of On3/Kentucky Sports Radio, that Stokes might even enroll in the spring as a mid-year student, opening up space for an adaptation season before officially launching in 2026 to 27. Pope's response to this possibility was revealing. He didn't rule out the idea, and more importantly, he showed composure. He said he loves the team he has, acknowledged the value of the team's chemistry, but made it clear that his locker room is strong enough to welcome any talent that can elevate the group. This type of speech reveals the confidence of a coach who understands a moment and what he is building. And if Stokes represents the most coveted target, Christian Collins is the name that confirms the standard of excellence in Kentucky's recruitment under Mark Pope. The Californian is a 5-star player on all analysis platforms, Rivals, 247 Sports, and ESPN, and has already named Kentucky as one of his 3 finalists, alongside UCLA and Southern Cal. Even with the strong options in his home state, Collins seems to see Lexington as a more conducive environment for his development, and that's no coincidence. Joe Tipton and Polachek project the player's commitment to the Wildcats, reinforcing the idea that Pope is about to form one of the most talented cores in the country. This perception is supported by the consistency with which Kentucky has remained among the finalists for top prospects, something few programs manage to repeat after a change in leadership. Pope has blended modernity and tradition, selling the Kentucky project not only as a showcase for the NBA, but as a culture in reconstruction, a culture that wants to win in its own way. He demonstrates an accurate reading of the landscape. In a time when recruitment has become as volatile as the transfer market, Kentucky's loss to Louisville last Tuesday wasn't just a setback in the season statistics, but also an opportunity to clearly see the weaknesses and challenges the team faces at the start of the campaign. If there was any doubt about Otega Owa's importance to Mark Pope's project and his new phase leading the Wildcats program, this game dispelled any ambiguity. Owa is a key player, but his impact needs to be more positive and consistent for Kentucky to achieve greater things. The veteran point guard, the ultimate hope of the blue and white fans, had a night to forget against an aggressive and well-organized Cardinals defense. With 12 points in 28 minutes, Owa was far from the player who shone last season as the SEC Player of the Year. His 4-13 field goal percentage and 1-6 three-point shooting percentage highlighted not only technical difficulties, but also questionable decisions on the court. When one coldly analyzes his negative balance of -16, the worst among all Kentucky players, it becomes clear that he struggled under pressure and failed to lead the team as many expected. However, it would be unfair to reduce his performance to cold numbers or the critical tone that always accompanies defeats of great programs like Kentucky. Even amidst the flaws, there were moments that reminded us why Owa is considered one of the jewels of college basketball. His defensive interceptions turned into easy points were examples of intelligence and instinct, while his ability to penetrate the opposing defense and draw fouls demonstrated unquestionable physical skill. However, these flashes of talent seemed isolated, like small rays of light on a predominantly dark night. Mark Pope, in his post-game analysis, acknowledged the weight of Louisville's defensive strategy on Owa. "They were physical with him," said the coach, highlighting the intensity with which the Cardinals pressured the point guard from the start. This approach, coupled with a lack of space created by his teammates, put Owa in an uncomfortable situation. But as the team leader, he was expected to find ways to overcome these obstacles. Unfortunately, avoidable mistakes, such as excessive turnovers, 5 in this game alone, and erratic three-point shooting choices, undermined his contributions. It's worth remembering that Owa returned this season with clear goals to improve his game with an NBA focus and further solidify his legacy at Kentucky. On paper, these are ambitious and inspiring goals. In practice, however, he has shown little growth compared to last season. The toe injury, which kept him out of training for months, certainly left its mark on his physical and mental preparation. But even with this context, it's impossible to ignore that the problems persist. The alarming number of turnovers, 10 against only 5 assists this season, and the inconsistency in long-range shooting indicate that there is much work ahead. Louisville not only exploited these weaknesses, but also exposed collective gaps in Kentucky. Without reliable shooters around Owa, the Wildcats became predictable and overly dependent on their star player. This created unsustainable pressure on his shoulders, something that became evident when he lost the ball after an impressive screen in the first half. Instead of capitalizing on the moment, he allowed the opposing defense to turn the situation in their favor. These seemingly minor details ultimately weigh heavily on the final result. However, all is not lost. Tuesday night at the KFC Center was, for Kentucky fans, a kind of paradox. On one hand, the 96-88 loss to Louisville left a bitter taste, as if the way of the rivalry had been more cruel than expected. On the other hand, Denzel Aberdeen emerged not only as a standout player, but as a kind of beacon in the darkness for a team still searching for its identity in this 2025-26 season. The senior point guard, recruited by Coach Mark Pope from the transfer market after a discreet stint in Florida, proved to be more than just a gamble. He is, so far, the beating heart of the Wildcats. From the moment he stepped onto the court against Louisville, it was clear that Aberdeen was not intimidated. He played like someone who understood the weight of expectations, but also like someone who knew that big occasions are made for shining. With 26 points scored, including a selection of shots that revealed both confidence and resilience, Aberdeen not only kept Kentucky competitive, but also offered fans a glimpse of what he could be capable of throughout this season. His performance, 10 for 20 from the field and 4 for 10 from three-point range, reflect a balance between calculated aggression and mature decision-making. Furthermore, his 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and only 1 turnover in 31 minutes demonstrate a rare versatility, especially in a context where every possession seemed fraught with pressure. What makes Aberdeen's performance even more remarkable is how he responded to critical moments in the game. When the score difference reached a daunting 20 points in the second half, he quietly led the comeback attempt. His basket in the paint, with just over 2 minutes remaining, reduced the Cardinals' lead to 5 points, igniting a spark of hope that, though brief, demonstrated the value of a player who never seems to give up. In the final 6 minutes, when many of his teammates seemed dejected, Aberdeen scored 8 points and dished out 2 assists, keeping the chance of comeback alive until the very last breath. In those final moments, he wasn't just a player. He was a leader, even if still in formation. Mark Pope acknowledged this when commenting on Aberdeen after the game. "Denzel's been through it all. He's been through it all," said the coach, with a tone that mixed pride and conviction. "I thought he did very well today. He's an incredible competitor. I need him to be a more vocal leader. That's his next step. Pope's observation, far from being a criticism, sounds like an invitation for Aberdeen to take on even more responsibility within the group. He has already demonstrated himself to be an exemplary leader, but there is something special about a player who can motivate his teammates with words and presence in the locker room. If Aberdeen can align this vocal dimension with his work ethic and determination on the court, he has the potential to become an unforgettable figure in the program's recent history. It's important to highlight that this isn't the first time Aberdeen has impressed this season. After overcoming a groin injury before the opener, he's been building a solid start with consistent numbers and very few turnovers. Only 2 in 72 minutes on the court so far. Against Nichols, he recorded 10 points and 6 assists without a single error, and in the following game, against Valparaiso, he contributed 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. His shooting efficiency, 53.1%, is another indication that he's ready to be Kentucky's offensive pillar, especially in difficult moments. However, Aberdeen's impact goes beyond the numbers. He represents something bigger. The possibility of redemption and renewal for a program that, like any giant of college basketball, constantly faces enormous expectations from its